Imagine waking up tomorrow and seeing $1 million sitting quietly in your investment account. What would change? You'd probably imagine quitting your job, buying the house you've always wanted, taking the vacation you've postponed for years, and finally feeling rich. But here's the strange part. If you ask someone who already has $1 million how they feel, most of them won't tell you they feel rich. They'll tell you they're comfortable, they'll tell you they're doing okay. They still worry. They still compare themselves to people who have more. They still wonder if it's enough. So what happened? How can someone reach a goal that millions of people dream about and still not feel wealthy? The answer has almost nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with how the human brain quietly changes the meaning of enough. When you're 22, $1 million feels like the finish line. It's the number that promises freedom from every problem you've ever worried about. You imagine waking up without stress, never checking your bank account again, and finally feeling like you've made it. In your mind, wealth isn't just money, it's peace. And peace seems to have a price tag. Then, life begins to improve. You get your first real raise. The notification arrives on your phone, and for a few days, it feels incredible. You smile more. You breathe easier. You tell yourself that everything is finally moving in the right direction. But a few weeks later, something strange happens. The excitement disappears. Your new salary stops feeling special and quietly becomes your new normal. Without even noticing, your life begins to grow around your income. The apartment gets a little nicer. The phone gets a little newer. Dinner becomes takeout more often. None of these decisions feel extravagant. Each one feels completely reasonable. But together, they quietly raise the cost of the life you've become used to. The finish line hasn't moved because your dream changed. It moved because your expectations did. Success has a strange habit. Every time you reach the goal you once dreamed about, your mind quietly creates a new one. The salary that once sounded life-changing becomes average. The car you once admired becomes ordinary. The house you desperately wanted becomes too small. You don't notice it happening because it happens slowly, one expectation at a time. Then something even more powerful happens. You stop comparing yourself to who you used to be. Instead, you compare yourself to the people standing just one step ahead of you. Suddenly, your success feels smaller. Not because your life became worse, but because your reference point changed. There will always be someone with a bigger house, a newer car, a larger portfolio, or a more impressive life online. And if comparison becomes your definition of wealth, enough becomes a destination you'll never reach. You meet someone who's worth more than $1 million. Maybe it's your boss, a client, or a neighbor you've known for years. You expect confidence. You expect certainty. Instead, you hear something surprising. They're worried about retirement. They're worried about taxes. They're worried about losing what they've built. It doesn't make sense at first. If $1 million isn't enough to make someone feel rich, then what is? That's when you realize something most people never do. Wealth and the feeling of wealth are two completely different things. The problem isn't that people earn more money. The problem is that their lives quietly expand to match it. A nicer apartment becomes a larger mortgage. A better salary becomes a more expensive vacation. A luxury car becomes a monthly payment that feels normal. Every increase in income is followed by an increase in expectations. The gap between what you earn and what you keep never seems to grow. That's why so many high-income earners still feel trapped. They're earning more than ever. But freedom never seems any closer. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. Imagine running on a treadmill that's constantly moving forward. No matter how fast you run, you never actually get closer to the horizon. That's exactly how happiness works when it's tied to possessions. every achievement creates a temporary emotional high. Then your brain adapts. What once felt extraordinary becomes ordinary. The excitement fades and the search begins again. Not because you're ungrateful, but because your mind was designed to normalize success. What if we've been measuring wealth with the wrong currency all along? Maybe real wealth isn't the size of your house. Maybe it isn't the logo on your car or the balance in your account. Maybe real wealth is waking up without checking your bank balance in fear. It's being able to say no to work you hate. It's having time to eat dinner with your family without answering emails every 5 minutes. Those things rarely show up on social media, but they're often the first things truly wealthy people learn to protect. Here's the paradox. The more money you make, the easier it becomes to believe you still don't have enough. Not because your bank account is empty, but because your definition of enough keeps moving. And unless you understand why that happens, no amount of money will ever feel like the amount you've been searching for. So if the answer isn't earning more, what is it? The next part of this story begins with a question that almost nobody asks. What does enough actually look like? A fascinating study once asked thousands of people a simple question: how much money would make you feel financially secure? The answers were surprisingly consistent. Most people didn't name a specific lifestyle. They named a number slightly higher than whatever they already had. Someone earning $50,000 believed $100,000 would finally feel like enough. Someone making $200,000 believed $500,000 would solve everything, and people worth millions often believed they needed just a little more. The destination never changed because the finish line was never fixed. Every step forward quietly moved it farther away. Imagine buying your dream house, the one you've imagined for years. On the first morning, it feels magical. Every room feels exciting. Every window reminds you that you've made it. But months pass. The furniture becomes ordinary. The view becomes familiar. The excitement fades into routine. Then one afternoon, you drive past an even bigger house sitting higher on the hill. Suddenly, the home that once represented success begins to feel average. Nothing about your house changed, only your perspective did. Years ago, comparison happened inside your neighborhood. Today, it fits in your pocket. Every scroll through social media introduces someone driving a newer car, flying first class, or celebrating another milestone. You aren't comparing yourself to your actual neighbors anymore. You're comparing yourself to the most carefully edited moments from millions of strangers. It's a game no one can win because the scoreboard never stops updating. Some of the wealthiest people you'll ever meet won't look wealthy at all. They drive reliable cars. They live in comfortable, but not extravagant homes. They wear simple clothes. From the outside, they seem ordinary. That's because they stopped spending money to prove they had it. Their wealth isn't parked in the driveway. It's working quietly in businesses, investments, and assets that no one notices. Real wealth is often invisible. Luxury is usually the part people can see. Maybe the question was never, how much money do I need? Maybe the better question is, what kind of life am I trying to build? Because once you know what truly matters to you, money stops being the destination. It becomes a tool to buy freedom instead of status, time instead of attention, peace instead of approval. The richest people aren't always the ones with the biggest accounts. Sometimes they're the ones who finally stop chasing a number that was never capable of making them feel complete. One morning, your investment account quietly crosses $1 million. There are no fireworks, no applause, no dramatic music. Your phone simply shows a bigger number than it did yesterday. You stare at the screen for a few seconds, smile to yourself, and then put the phone face down. The coffee still needs to be made. The dog still needs to be walked. The dishes are still sitting in the sink. Life doesn't suddenly transform because another zero appeared on a screen. That's the moment you realize something most people never expect. Money changes your options much faster than it changes your emotions. Psychologists call it the arrival fallacy, the belief that reaching a future goal will finally make you happy forever. We tell ourselves, when I get the promotion, when I buy the house, when I reach $1 million, then I'll relax. But life rarely works that way. Every arrival quietly becomes another starting point. The destination you chased for years slowly turns into your new normal, and your mind begins searching for another mountain to climb. The problem was never the goal. The problem was believing that one achievement could permanently change the way you feel. Then one day, you notice something that doesn't appear on any financial statement. You sleep better. You no longer panic every time the market falls. You don't feel the need to impress strangers with expensive purchases. You spend more evenings with your family, more mornings without rushing, more weekends doing things you genuinely enjoy. None of those moments increase your net worth on paper, but they increase something far more valuable: the quality of your life. And that's a return no stock market can calculate. The richest person in the room isn't always the one wearing the most expensive watch. It isn't the one driving the newest car or talking the loudest about success. Sometimes it's the quiet person who has learned to live below their means, invest consistently, and stop measuring their life against someone else's highlight reel. Real wealth is invisible. It's the freedom to make decisions without fear. It's having enough time to enjoy the people you love. And it's the confidence that your future isn't built on appearances, it's built on patience. So why do rich people never feel rich? Because the human brain was never designed to stop wanting more. It adapts, it compares, it moves the finish line every time you get close. But once you understand that, something incredible happens. You stop chasing a number and start designing a life. You realize that money is not the destination. It's the tool that gives you choices. And maybe that's what being rich really means. Not having everything, but finally realizing you already have enough. The next time you look at your bank account, don't just ask yourself, how much do I have? Ask a better question. How much do I actually need to live the life I truly want? The answer to that question may be worth more than $1 million. Imagine two people. One has $10 million, but spends every day comparing himself to billionaires. The other has enough to pay the bills, enough to sleep peacefully, and enough time to have dinner with the people he loves. Now ask yourself a simple question. Which one is actually wealthy? Because money can buy almost anything, except the feeling that what you already have is enough. The most expensive prison in the world doesn't have walls. It's built from comparison, expectations, and the constant belief that happiness lives one promotion, one paycheck, or one purchase away. The door to that prison isn't locked. Most people simply never realize they're the ones holding the key. Somewhere today, a millionaire is shopping at a discount grocery store, driving a 10-year-old car, and wearing a plain sweatshirt. Nobody notices him. Nobody takes pictures. Nobody calls him successful. But his investments continue working while he sleeps. His bills are paid. His future is protected. He doesn't need strangers to believe he's wealthy, because he already knows he is. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along. Instead of asking, how can I look rich? Maybe we should ask, how can I build a life that doesn't require looking rich? Because the people who spend the most time proving they have money are often the ones with the least financial freedom. The people who quietly build wealth rarely need anyone else's approval. Peace doesn't make much noise. That's why it's so easy to miss. So why do rich people never feel rich? Because money changes your lifestyle faster than it changes your mind. The finish line keeps moving unless you decide to stop moving it. Real wealth begins the moment you stop asking, what do they have? And start asking, What is enough for me? Because the richest person isn't the one with the biggest bank account. It's the one who no longer needs a bigger one to feel complete. If this story changed the way you think about money, share it with someone who's still chasing the next number. And if you enjoy thoughtful stories about psychology, wealth, and the decisions that shape our lives, subscribe because the next story might change the way you see success forever.